Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of the Immaculate Perceptions. Today we got a power pack show. We got a lot of stuff, big news going down just recently regarding Antonio Brown and the reverberating effects that's going to have and stuff like that. So, but we're really excited to talk today. We got a lot of good topics, like I said. So, how are you guys doing?
I'm ready. I think I let Armondo go first last week. So I'm ready. Watched a little AAF yesterday. There was some fun stuff. There's some big draft news, of course, which you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I think today will be more, I think we're going to be leaning towards more the NFL draft centric side of things because there's a lot of things happening. And I'm just glad to be here, of course.
Yeah, man, it's a good time. We're just coming off the combine, get ready for the draft. Lots of free postseason or preseason, I guess now, acquisitions and things. I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, let's do that. Let's get into it.
We've got a fun announcement. So we're actually going to be live streaming day 1 of the NFL draft, not day 2 and day 3, but day 1. We are going to be live streaming. So you guys, tell me what are you guys the most excited to see about the draft?
Well, first of all, I think you guys were texting, and I didn't even think about it. Like, of course we should live stream, and
Yeah.
I think I'm like more excited to like have our show and watch everything go down live together. At least the first night, right? We could do the first night. And I was telling Ben, like, we could kind of like talk about like what we think about that move, kind of like you were watching
Absolutely.
ESPN. So if you kind of got into listening to us in the start, you could listen to us ramble on about the draft. I'm most excited though about the Jets again because we're in the 3rd spot again. And as you know, last season we were lucky enough to get Sam Darnold fall to us, and this year there's some interesting things going on, and I think what's happening with trades with Antonio Brown and stuff are going to affect the Jets' decisions too. So as a Jets fan, I'm excited. So
Yeah, same here. Being also a New York born and bred, I'm a fan of the Giants. Not the Jets, but with the number 6 pick, I'm hoping that we avoid the Kyler Murray hype.
do you want the Jet? Do you want to trade down to the Jets? They got that beautiful 3rd spot, I think. The Giants and Jets have never worked together on a trade before.
You know what? I think Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State will be there anyway at number 6.
Probably.
So we don't need to lease the farm, as it were, to go to number 3.
I don't know if he's going to be there or not. I don't know. Like right now, the way the current draft is shaken out, there's a good chance. However, a couple of those teams that are sitting up at the top, I think are willing to trade down. So if you got somebody else who needs a quarterback, I mean, we know Foles is going to Jacksonville. We know Flacco has gone to Denver. So I don't really know who that team is, But I know there's always teams looking to upgrade quarterback. So I don't know. Maybe a team that's got, an aging quarterback. I don't know who that might be either. But we can kind of look at that stuff. We're going to talk a lot more about the draft and the quarterback situation and things like that here in a little bit. But let's get on to the AAF.
Sure.
Every week we talk about the AAF. And, I'll go first. There was basically, some big news today, which is Aaron Murray is going to be starting for...
Yeah, he looked good, man. He looked good last week. He looked good. So, much better than Matt Sims did. So.
Oh, there it is.
You got a hat? Yes.
Yeah, dude. I got the hat. Atlanta Legends. This is to celebrate Aaron Murray, my Georgia Bulldog, starting last week and getting the win for the Atlanta Legends, our first win of the year. Now today at 4:00, which we record this on Sundays, they're going to be playing
my team.
Yeah, your team, the Memphis Express.
The Express.
And so we both have one win. So whoever wins this one is only going to be one game behind the Birmingham Iron, who lost yesterday. So really a win today, and we might be right back in it.
That is one of the biggest games for me personally, and I think in the league, because it's the battle of the one-win teams.
Yeah.
It's the battle of the teams that were memed to hell for the first few weeks of the season. Like, you go on the AF Reddit, there was a meme about Atlanta Legends or Memphis Express, or they were combined in the same meme, right? Like, they're the epitome of what was bad about the AAF for a while, and now they're turning it around, and it's really, and I think we're starting to see true colors. And I want to just note that yesterday we saw some more true colors of Perez, the quarterback with Birmingham. He's turning out not to be what we thought.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that this guy is digressing. And now he got benched yesterday. and Birmingham still lost, which I believe they lost to Orlando,
yeah.
which we were thinking was going to be a really good game. But look, Orlando's the number one team in the league right now.
Orlando is making the other 7 teams look bad. Like Orlando's 5-0. San Diego and Birmingham should have the second, they do have the second best 2 records. San Diego should have lost last night. And what I thought was, definitely one of the best games of the season, which was San Diego or Salt Lake City at San Diego. And basically Salt Lake City came down, made an incredible play. Well, there was a pass interference call, so they ended up getting 1st and goal with like a minute left. Made a great pass. The guy, the receiver who caught the ball, did like one of those Antonio Brown reach over the goal line, kind of like he did in I think it was in the playoffs, or either a game to get in the playoffs a few years ago against the Ravens. And then they got the 2-point conversion. They went up 25-24, and then San Diego went right down the field in a minute and kicked I think it was like a 48-yard field goal or something. So it was no gimme.
I think the clock went to 0 on the field goal. Am I right? Counted down. Yes. They won. Man, football is back in San Diego.
Yeah.
I think the AAF, one of the best location moves for the AAF was going to San Diego, being like, you know what? They screwed over all those. We can get a fan base. So now, and you know what? The yellow, everything about the fleet just fits San Diego. I know the naval base is down there. But they did beat the Stallions, who I want to just give credit. The Stallions have been playing really well.
But they've only got 1 win.
They only got 1 win too. Yeah. But they've been every game they play, they're playing hard. Mm-hmm. Okay. But just so you guys know, yes, we record on Sunday, so there are 2 more games coming up today. I think it's what's the other game? We have the Memphis versus Legends, and then
Arizona versus
Hot Shots.
Yeah. Arizona versus.
Why isn't it showing it on the AF?
I'll pull it up real quick. I can't remember who the last team is.
In the meantime, while you're doing that, I'll just let you know that at the risk of sounding like a bandwagon rider, I'm rooting for the Orlando.
San Antonio.
Is that your team?
Yeah, my parents live in that area, and I have some affinity for
front runners.
Basketball teams, the Orlando Magic.
I was going to say front runners. You have an affinity for front runners.
I like to win. I'm a winner. But yeah, I'm rooting for Orlando. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So it's Arizona and
Commanders.
Yeah, San Antonio at Arizona. Yeah.
Okay, that will be an interesting game. Those 2 kind of match up pretty similar. But listen, I think we're seeing. I mean, I'm excited to watch the playoffs. I mean, I hope. I mean, I don't know if the Memphis are gonna. It's gonna be a tough game. I'm excited for Memphis Atlanta. That is my big Hot Shots, I think, will win the game against San Antonio. San Antonio's kind of been like this.
Yeah.
But I'm more interested in, I think the game of the week is Memphis versus Atlanta, to be honest with you. I mean, look, we watched Orlando blow over Birmingham and prove that Birmingham isn't really that good. They still have a decent defense, though.
Yeah. Well, one of these teams is going to be pretty much out of it after today. And one of them is still going to have a chance to make the playoffs. So, I'm obviously pulling for Atlanta. I thought it was really cool, man. Like I went to Dick's Sporting Goods the other day as I
can't believe you got it.
Yeah. So there was a whole little section. I mean, it was maybe 2 racks full of Atlanta Legend stuff, man. It was at Dick's Sporting Goods. I went to go get my kids some shin guards for our soccer game we played yesterday, and my wife was like, "Oh my gosh, can you believe they got Atlanta Legend stuff?" I was like, "Yeah." She said, "You have to get something." I was like, "Yeah, I know." So I started getting a shirt, but I was like, man, I wear Lakers stuff and Monarch stuff or whatever, but that's a Monarch wallet, not the WNBA team. But
I totally thought WNBA.
Yeah. But anyways, the colors are purple, but I'm not a big purple guy. I don't like purple that much, other than, rocking Lakers stuff or whatever. So, I don't like the colors, but the hat was pretty cool. And as you guys know, I wear my hats backwards all the time is like my thing. And so it's got the AAF logo on the front. So that was pretty cool. So real excited to see what's going to happen today between these 2 teams. Who knows? I may go to a game soon.
You should. I really think you should. And you know what? I had to choose between Atlanta and Memphis because they're the most East Coast teams. I guess Apollos but they're a little bit more south, so they're East Coast too. But Memphis is the closest to New York, New Jersey, to be honest, which is really weird. And there's all these Jets, affiliated. Yeah. So this is our first rivalry game, Ben. But before we move on, I think this is kind of like a filler week. We're going to see kind of strides this week. We're really going to I'm just really want to get to the playoff side of this thing. I'm ready to see like who's going after the first championship of the AF. But of course, I have a rant before we move on. My rant is the greatest football game ever made was NFL 2K5, right? Now, there's an opportunity here with the AAF and the XFL doing so well, or I don't know if the XFL is going to do well, but well enough where 2K games could say, fuck EA. Oh, I just cursed. Only curse today. Could say, screw over EA and the NFL. Let's get a license with the AAF and make football games that were good again. Okay? Did you guys ever play this game?
Yeah,
NFL 2K5?
I did play that game. Yeah.
Amazing. So good. Like, it wasn't like Madden where you had to toss the ball up, throw it deep. You had to like figure out plays in this game. You couldn't just like willy-nilly, you know. So shout out to 2K games. I hope you guys pick up the AAF and make some cool video games again that aren't just Madden, because I can go into a whole nother Madden rant, but I'm not. That's it. That's it for Andy's rant.
Let me ask you a quick follow-up on that, because I remember games like NBA Jam, where it was a basketball game, but it was just so much more. It's a lot more fun and much more superfluous with the crazy jams from half court. Would you like to see something like that with the 2K and potential AAF partnership, where it was a game, it is a football game, it's a sim, but at the same time you have monster hits and you have the ability to knock players' helmets off and you got bonus points? Could you see that working, or is it too unrealistic?
No, I think I always considered those two types of games, like NFL Blitz was the NBA Jam of football. But what I know that on 2K, that NBA 2K offers street mode where you can go on and play street ball. It's not as arcadey, but I think if you offered me one game that had the simulation and they're like, oh, but you could play our fun like Blitz style game, I'd be like all for like combining both.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Where I have the option.
Well, Madden kind of has that. They've got the 3 different modes you can kind of play in: arcade or classic, or I can't remember what the other one is, but there's really not that much of a difference.
It's not much. It's just easier, pretty much. Like higher scoring on arcade. Like it's just like, you're going to score crazy plays all the time.
What it boils down to is the receivers catching the ball more. That's all that matters.
Oh, just like in the AAF,
yeah, that's good point.
Like your legends who can't catch the ball for the life.
Excited to see my boy.
I think they dropped the ball more than anyone in the league, right? I don't know.
What do you guys think?
Matt Sims.
What do you guys think about me and my boy Aaron?
I love it, dude.
I'm excited, man. Aaron Murray was a good player, and I knew he'd probably be a backup on the NFL level, good. But I'm excited to see him. So. All right,
this might give him a chance to be a backup in the NFL if he plays good this year, I think. He's worth a look.
I can't believe he was behind Alex Smith, and then they brought Mahomes in. And I don't know where he went after that, but or maybe this is where he ended up. So,
well, I'm noticing like guys like Gilbert, who I think was in the NFL too, like, they're kind of like, this is a chance to showcase and be like, hey, don't forget I can play football. Yeah. Like, if you don't bring me, like, I would say that I think Gilbert is the most like well-rounded. He's a big guy. That guy's tossing the ball down in Orlando like it's water. It's like you really know the players that are going to be successful in the NFL are the ones that are really standing out right now, right? Yeah. I mean, ones that are really popping are the ones that could be in the NFL. Anyway, I think we're good on the AAF. We got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Well, let's move on to our sports Twitter shout out. I'll go first. I'll tell you what, let me go last because it'll kind of lead into our next topic. So, Armondo, what about you? Who you got this week?
All right. So I'm going to go with Nick Wright, former columnist down in Kansas City, and now he's a co-host with Chris Carter and Jenna Wolf, Fox FS1. First Things First. Great show, great podcast. Listen almost every day. And Nick Wright, he went to the University of Syracuse University in New York, so a little bit of a New York love there. He's practically my age. I feel like he's someone you go grab a beer with and talk sports. So he's at Get Nick Wright, GetNickWright, Get Nick Wright. That's my Twitter sports shout out.
Awesome. What about you, Ando?
Nice. I'm going to do not a person, but a league, because recently, you guys know I'm a big video gamer. There's the NBA 2K League, which is owned by the NBA, and I think about 8 or so teams own their own esports team, and they did their draft. They did their draft, which is really cool. Second season. I think their first season did okay. I think they had to do a lot of things differently. But actually, the first, there's a female esport player on one of the NBA teams, which I thought was cool too. So anyway, shout out to NBA 2K League on Twitter. So it's at NBA 2K League. Check it out. It's kind of cool. Eventually you're going to be seeing this stuff on ESPN. And I think it's cool. The NBA is kind of seeing progressively, like, let's just do our own league.
Yeah.
And like, let's pay for it. Let's make the logos. Let's do this. So shout out and kudos to the NBA as well. So that's my shout out. NBA 2K League.
Well, very interesting. We mentioned this sometimes, but we're all into cryptocurrency, and this is kind of a tie-in.
Wait, what's that?
It's basically digital money.
Before.
It's digital money.
Oh, can you tell me what Bitcoin?
No, I'm not going to. But it's funny because on my cryptocurrency YouTube channel, I talked this week about Plair, Plair, which is a crypto project that's involved with this project called VeChain. The long and the short of it is, though, is what Plair is they're trying to take, like, so esports are becoming more and more popular, right? And they're professional leagues, just like what you're talking about. They're popping up everywhere. We all know Ninja. Like, Ninja's a really popular gamer. I'm not even into gaming, but I know who he is, you know. Yep. So he's been on, like, Jimmy Fallon, I think, or one of the Tonight shows. So these guys are getting more and more popular.
Jimmy Fallon, I mean, everything.
But there has not really been a way to tie in, like, some kind of amateur league for esports, right? Like, you might have little, like, geographical niches, or, you know, for maybe
they call
like
them locals.
Locals.
They're called locals.
Exactly. So you might be the king of your local chapter, whatever you want to call it, league. But then you move across the country and you're nobody again. You know, like, you'd have to earn your way back up to the top. So what Plair is trying to do is kind of integrate all of these local leagues to be like one amateur league where you can move up rank wise and stuff like that. So something to keep your eye on. And this is the whole reason I bring this up, because I read the stat that blew my mind. They say by 2021, which is only 2 years away, 35% of the world will be gamers.
Yeah, of course.
35%.
You don't have to tell me that. You're not blowing my mind.
That's a third. More than a third. Yeah.
Here, let me just give you more perspective, okay? In Korea, for 10 to 20 years before us, they have been ahead of everybody with esports and gaming. Gaming is bigger than anything in their, like, first of all, Korea doesn't have a lot of sports per se, right? So gaming became there are esport players on cereal boxes in Korea. Korea's ahead of everybody. So where they're kind of at is where America's going to get. We're still in our infancy in America esports as a televised thing, you know, as like a mainstream thing. But I always remind people that, yes, in America, it's still on its rise, but in Asia, it's already there. Like, there's Dota 2's, I think, Jackpot, which is a famous MOBA, like, esports game, was like at like 18 million. So you're talking like this team of 5 guys split 18 million and then they won the championship. Did
they start their own restaurant after that?
No. You know what?
5 Guys Burger and Fries. I just ate there yesterday.
How many sport players have you seen make restaurants that have completely failed? Except for like Shula. Don Shula's
I got a Don Shula signed football helmet sitting right over here.
Shula's is around. I give Shula credit, but like Lawrence Taylor tried to open a restaurant back in the day. That shit closed. I think Marino had something. Like,
they all try something.
Do not open a steakhouse.
do not do it. I remember Marino.
Only Don Shula has that ability. Okay, you do not.
And he had to be perfect.
He knew what he got into steaks. You know, his restaurants are expensive. Some of them are very like high class steaks. Whatever.
Well, cool.
So good for Don Shula.
Well, let me hit up my Twitter shout out, which is going to lead us into our first main topic of the day, which is I'm shouting out Antonio Brown at AB84. And why am I shouting him out? Well, he had a really funny tweet I thought this week was basically, if you don't know about the ongoing Antonio Brown saga that is seemingly closed now, he wanted to be traded from the Steelers, and the Steelers had agreed on a trade to the Buffalo Bills. And
I can't even believe he would want to go to the Bills.
Well, he didn't. That was the whole thing. He did not want to go to the Bills, and so he nixed the trade. He said, "No, I'm not going there. I won't sign a contract." They had like a verbal agreement. similar to what they have right now with the Raiders. I mean, there's nothing signed yet. There's some differences with that trade that are going to make it go through. But once someone reported, I can't remember the reporter that put out the first tweet about Antonio Brown was being traded to the Bills. Antonio Brown responded to that tweet and said, or either retweeted it, one or the other, and said, fake news.
Jesus.
He just said fake news. So you got this NFL reporter saying he's going to the Bills and had good information. Antonio Brown comes on and says fake news. So he's a funny dude. He's got the freaking bleached mustache right now. Like, yeah, he's not a good teammate. I wouldn't want him on my team. But, you know, in the social media world, he's definitely pretty fun to follow. So, but he did get traded. That's the big news. He did get traded to the Raiders. And there's a contract extension along with it, or restructuring the contract for 3 years. And, you know, my opinion on this is that it's not going to make the Raiders that much better. However, the Raiders really won this trade for a lot of reasons. Number one, this trade is not to win games this week. This is for when they move to Vegas in 2 years. This is a flashy move for them. This is going to get
he knows he'll make – I think they're going to make – the Raiders are going to make so much money in Vegas.
Oh, my gosh, it's going to be insane.
All the players are going to make a lot of money. All the car dealerships in Vegas are going to do the players. Are going to be doing commercials. Come on. Vegas is all about that.
Yeah.
Right?
So the second,
it's a good move.
The second thing that I would say, and then I'll get you guys' opinions on the trade. The second thing is they destroyed the Cowboys on that Amari Cooper trade, because they traded Amari Cooper for a first-round pick, and then they got Antonio Brown for a third and fifth round pick. So really what you're looking at is that, you know, the Raiders gave up Amari Cooper, a third and a fifth, for Antonio Brown and a first. So I got to say, I think they won the trade, hands down, but with the Steelers and also with the Cowboys. So I want to know your thoughts, Armando. What do you think about this trade? Do you think it's good? And your initial thoughts on it.
So for the sake of putting butts in seats for tickets, for flashy, for Vegas, sure, it makes sense. To your point about, if all things were equal, if Antonio Brown and Amari Cooper were equal, then sure, you could make the case a third and a fifth is better than giving up a first. However, Antonio Brown is at the end of his prime. He is a diva. He is someone who has no problem telling the quarterback to get me the friggin' ball, and got his panties in a bunch when Juju Smith-Schuster was a nominated team captain and he wasn't. Meanwhile, you have Amari Cooper, who is much younger, who can run every route in the route tree, is a much more physical receiver, still has breakaway speed. He's never going to badmouth coaches or teammates. He's not going to throw you under a bus in the media. He's an all-around, much better team guy, and he's not a cancer. So all things are not equal. I would much rather have Amari Brown than AB.
Amari Brown? Is that a combo? Is that their love child?
Yeah, right.
I'm going to say that as a Jets fan, I experienced the Revis situation, which was Revis is a Hall of Famer, and I've never seen a cornerback in one season that he play the way he did, where he locked down some of the biggest top 10 receivers back to back. He was doing it and showing it on the card, but he put me in as a fan in such distress, and like I hated it, like trying every day to look at the beat writers and see if there's some news that maybe he's signing, and this whole free agency thing it was awful. Diva players, I learned through Revis, are the worst to have on my team. And I noticed on the Jets Reddit, we don't want a thing to do with him. And there's rumors that the Jets were involved. I don't want us to have a poll. I don't even give a shit if he's the greatest wide receiver and still might be in his prime. Who knows? I don't give a shit. Let him go to the Raiders and let him go to Vegas. Get him the hell away from my team, because I do not want a diva player. And I've learned, I think it's important to build from the draft, to really care about players that want to be team players. Is he a team player, guys, off the top of your head?
No, not at all.
But
if you're the Raiders though, and you're not competing this year, no matter what, like even if they get Le'Veon Bell, which some people think that Antonio Brown is recruiting Le'Veon Bell and that's where he's going to end up, I can see it. even with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown, they're still not competing this year. They have like the worst defense in the NFL. So I just can't see it. Like, if you're a Raiders fan, like I'm a season ticket holder for the Falcons, right? We've had some bad seasons. This season was a bad season, you know? Back when Julio broke his foot in 2013, I believe, we went 4-12. It was a terrible season. And like, if you're a season ticket holder, you're going to these games about halfway through the season, you know your season's done. You're like, why am I even coming? You know, like, I've already bought these tickets, but there's nothing exciting. Like, at least if you're a Raiders fan, I feel like you lost Khalil Mack, you lost Amari Cooper. Now you at least have somebody who can get some excitement, you know? Like, I understand both your arguments if you guys are competing for a playoff spot, but in that AFC West with the Chargers and the Chiefs, they're not competing for a playoff spot this year, in my opinion.
But see, then that speaks to philosophy. You should be competing to be competitive and make the playoffs every single season, not where you paid some Chucky lunatic coach a decade-long contract for the largest contract in coach freaking history. So then what? You have no sense of urgency? You have no fire under your butt, so you can make all these crazy deals. And how much money, if they do get Bell, how much money do you pay him? Stretch the cap? Is foolish. You should be trying to win from jump. That's your job. And they're not. He's not doing his due diligence as a coach. And if I'm a Raiders fan, I would be pissed they picked up this defense.
It sounds like the Randy Moss move to the Raiders a long time ago.
Almost all the Raiders moves they've done.
But who's the one team that this should happen to?
Raiders.
Is the Raiders.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, let him go to the Raiders, because I don't want him, but I know the Raiders would take him.
So
listen, character guys are just I don't care anymore about. I don't want them on my team.
Well,
in a certain sense, you want character guys, but character guys that care about their play, you know.
So here's the thing, Armondo. Like, I understand what you're saying, and I'm not saying that the team itself or that the players believe that they will not compete. I think Antonio Brown going there believes he's good enough to make them where they can compete. I'm talking about it from a fan perspective, like an intellectually honest perspective, to look and see the two teams that are ahead of you in your own division and say, like, you know, how rare is it that three teams from one division ever make the playoffs? The NFC South did it a few years ago, but it is very, very rare. So I'm just saying, like, if I were a Raiders fan without a lot to cheer for last year, like, if you listen to how sad the Raiders fans were, they did recently sign a new contract with Oakland, so they will be in Oakland for one more year. But they thought last year that, like, I think the game against the Chiefs or the Broncos was their last game ever in Oakland. And, like, I was listening to people on the radio talk about, like, how sad they were. Like, they're going to the last game, and it wasn't even, like, exciting. They just said it was the weirdest feeling. So I think for the Raiders fans, especially if you're in Oakland, like, I think this is exciting. I understand what you're saying about him being a cancer. However, you know, for years, people have said him and Julio are the two best receivers in the league, you know, and you can't really get two different guys, right? Like, look, Julio is probably the most Julio and Larry Fitzgerald are probably the two most non-diva wide receivers we've ever seen in the NFL.
But that's the difference, Ben. If you told me Julio or Brown, I'm going to go Julio every time.
Yeah.
Julio, he catches the rock and plays his butt. He's one of the best receivers in the league for the past how long? Like,
ever. He's one of the best ever. He's on track to crush all the records.
He's just like Larry Fitzgerald. Keeps his mouth shut. And look, you could be a diva on the field and do dances and stuff and be like Deion Sanders, but don't be a diva off the field and be a teammate. Deion Sanders was a teammate and a diva. Yeah. He's an example of a great teammate that was a diva. Yeah. Don't be Terrell Owens in your driveway doing sit-ups, okay? Don't let Brown turn into that.
I like T.O. I was a T.O. fan. I'm one of the only ones.
I mean,
of course you would.
T.O. deserves the Hall of Fame with technically
Team Obliterator. Remember that from Skip Bayless? What? Team Obliterator, T.O. That's what he did?
Is that what he said?
I used to watch his reality show. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I can look at some of these players and sympathize with, like, I think the things that have led them to be like they are, you know, and like T.O., you listen to how he grew up, there's a relationship with his family, and just the dude's jacked up. Like, he's jacked up in the head. And that's not an excuse for him to act that way, but you can kind of understand what made him become that way. You know, he tried to commit suicide during training camp, I think. Yeah.
I'll counter you. Curtis Martin grew up in the ghettos of Pittsburgh. His family had like no money, gets a scholarship. You could grow up from a shitty upbringing and still be. Curtis Martin's a perfect example of coming from nothing and being like a great player, an example of a good human being. And if you ever want to hear one of the greatest Hall of Fame speeches, underrated, Curtis Martin's is like, it pulls you back. Because
Curtis Martin he's known for having the most beautiful signature of all NFL signatures.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I could see that. He was always
him and Jerome Bettis. Really, seriously.
Check it out. I believe
random.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, I'm in the football helmet business. So.
That's my example. Curtis Martin came from a really shitty upbringing, just like Terrell Owens. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it does affect you, you know. But yeah. I'm saying Terrell Owens is Terrell Owens. He still has Hall of Fame numbers, though.
Well, some people overcome it, you know, and that's. I mean, you could argue T.O. obviously overcame it for sure in some ways, but
definitely.
I'm coming from a background where I work with, you know, people with addictions for a long time, for 10 years. And so, like, I'm used to kind of looking behind the curtain and seeing, like, okay, why is this person acting the way that they're working? And so from that perspective, it was interesting for me to watch the end of T.O.'s career and to watch the whole saga, kind of knowing what I know about, you know, psychologically the reasons why people do what they do. So
who's that on the cover?
He was also on the cover of Madden. Was it Madden 05?
But this is the greatest game of all time. This is the greatest. But here's the thing: this season, when he went to the Super Bowl, was one of his best seasons. He was phenomenal,
and he should have been. And then he got Super Bowl MVP. If they would have won, he would have been Super Bowl MVP.
But remember, he was injured, and he gave it his all in the Super Bowl. Yeah, and he was like really hurt. So I give him some props. I mean,
he gets props,
and he was a physical beast, for sure. He looked different than other receivers. He was, you know, we have receivers kind of like that now. That size, Julio, and, you know, Megatron was bigger than him too, but, you know, he was much more muscular than we had been used to seeing for wide receivers at that time.
But you see, I don't remember Megatron. I remember Terrell Owens, and that's another thing I think. Well, I remember him, but in conversation, this is the first time I brought him up. He was great. He's a Hall of Famer, no doubt, but he was one of the quietest. No, he never talked. He played for the Lions, a shitty team, for his whole career. You know, it's sad that he'll be forgotten, but Terrell Owens won't be because he was eccentric and crazy. But that's the fun part, right? Yeah. And he did it in a fun way. He never really was like malicious to anybody, right? So there's a difference. But Antonio Brown always had like this weird swagger I don't like. There's a difference.
He's got they call him Mr. Big Chest, you know, because he's got that little man syndrome, you know, like he's bigger than us. He's probably taller than all three of us, but you know, in the NFL, in terms of wide receivers, he's not very big. And so it almost feels like he's always trying to prove like, yeah, I'm not as big as you guys, but I'm better. And like, that's kind of what he's based his whole career on. That's my opinion anyways.
This hasn't officially happened yet, though. It's all just being worked out.
They've already agreed to the contract terms, I think. Let me see.
I don't think it's like gone through officially yet. Remember there was all the FUD about the Bills? And everyone thought he was going to the Bills for a hot second.
It was different, though, because Antonio Brown himself already tweeted out a picture wearing a Raiders uniform.
That's true. Oh, yeah, he did.
Yeah, I did see that. So it says they've agreed on the deal. Antonio Brown's agreed. I'm not sure exactly. I guess it's still got to go through the league office and things like that. But, yeah, it's I think this one is a done deal. Now, we've seen trades before that looked official and then got nixed. I think, didn't the Giants have a trade a couple years ago where they made a big trade and then somebody failed their physical or something like that? Do you remember that?
That happens a lot. I don't remember.
I can't remember who.
Yeah. So it does happen.
It's happened before.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe that bleached mustache he'll fail the physical for. So
maybe.
Hard to trust anyone with a bleached mustache.
It really is. Except for Hulk Hogan. Okay, so listen.
Yes.
Let's move on. Let's I want to talk a little NBA today, but I guess let's kind of stick with the draft theme for right now. I'm not sure if we'll have time to touch on the NBA stuff, but let's talk about the quarterbacks in this draft, right? So we have a few notable ones. Obviously, we have Dwayne Haskins, who a lot of people consider to be the number one overall talent. We have Kyler Murray, who before this week, a lot of people thought he might be number one, but apparently he did terrible in all his interviews with a bunch of teams, and he got canned over that. We've got Drew Lock. We've got Daniel Smith from Duke, Will Greer, a few other guys. But the hot topic right now is what are the Cardinals going to do with that number 1 pick. It has came out that apparently they are seriously considering trading Josh Rosen after 1 season and picking Kyler Murray at the top of the list, which could have huge effects. Now, I think maybe they're just posturing and positioning to get somebody maybe to trade up to that spot to get Kyler Murray. I don't know if they're sold on this, but in some respects, I feel like they almost need to trade him at this point because now these rumors have came out. That's going to shake his confidence. And I remember when Josh Rosen was going through the NFL Combine and the draft process, he came off as a super douche, like just like a jerk, like somebody I wouldn't want playing on my team. And it turns out maybe he's as unlikable on his team as he was in all those interviews. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that's something that we might see? Do you guys think it's smoke and mirrors? And if so, who do you think is willing to trade up to get Kyler Murray?
I think that I've been watching a lot of SportsCenter and NFL Network, and a lot of people are saying now because of the tests and all that stuff, his character stuff is not on par for the kind of quarterback you want to, and not even that, his size is also a problem. So Kyler Murray might fall, but let's look at the draft when the Redskins took Robert Griffin III. Mm-hmm. Who did they draft in the second round?
Third round? Was it second or third?
Or third round.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins.
But everyone was like, why did they do that? They already got this guy, And Kirk Cousins was coming out of college as a decent quarterback with high grades, but he didn't get like first round grades. But why not keep Josh Rosen? He's only 1 year, and draft another quarterback. Let them fight it out. Because if Josh Rosen is pissed, like he's cocky like that, he'll want to do whatever he can to beat this guy in preseason. So as an owner of a team, I actually think it wouldn't be like a bad investment to say, you know what? The only problem would be Josh Rosen might be upset with the fact that they want to draft a quarterback after a season, but they could also say, look, you haven't been proving anything. There's something, remember, we don't see the practices. Remember that? I always say that to people. We don't see practices. There's a reason why Tim Tebow never threw passes for the Jets, because he sucked in practice. But yeah, Armando, what do you think of this? I don't know if you agree with me. Like, maybe it's okay to have 2 quarterbacks, or do you think it's let's let it go?
So there's an old adage in football. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. Okay? For so many different reasons, but the locker room being one of the biggest. When your team captains on the offense and defensive side of the ball and the special teams, when they don't know who to look to, who their captain is, who their leader is,
it creates division.
It's a house divided, exactly. And so you can't have that. You got to have one captain, one quarterback, one leader leading the team. So the idea of having him fight it out, it sounds great in theory. It does not work.
But it has worked.
It didn't work well in Washington. You talked about RG3. That was a dumpster
I'm talking
fire.
about it worked out for Washington. Let's talk about the team. Why did it work out for Washington? Because Robert Griffin III didn't work out. Then here comes Cousins, and he actually became a starting quarterback.
They have Alex Smith as their quarterback.
No, I'm talking about
all.
Well, it didn't work. It worked out for a bunch of seasons for them. They had a starting quarterback for a while, and unfortunately, Cousins left to a bigger contract. They lost Cousins.
I gotta say, I think with the Redskins situation, that if we were to go back in history and change who Mike Shanahan started in the playoff game against Seattle, if he would have started Kirk Cousins instead of RG3, I think the story would be completely different right now. I think RG3 would still be the quarterback. I think that injury he suffered in that game destroyed his career. He was never the same. And then it divided RG3 fans versus Kirk Cousins fans. And it created a lot of division on that team.
Right.
And they were never really happy with Kirk Cousins. Even though he's moved on, he's a starting quarterback, Washington was never really happy.
That's why they didn't commit. That's why Washington, to your point, did not commit to Cousins. And that's why I said, you know what? You want to get a bigger contract someplace else? Go for it. They strung him along with franchise tag at the franchise tag, and he didn't do that well in Minnesota. Now, granted, they had the death in the coaching ranks in the offseason last year, and this is first year in the offense. We'll see. But if he's as this pedestrian this year as he was last year, then Washington, in hindsight, did the right thing by not keeping him aboard. That being said, talking about going back to Josh Rosen.
Armando wants him.
You know what? I do. Do you a Giants fan? You better believe it. You know what? We got the 6th pick. We can take Haskins, assuming no one jumps up in between 1 through 5 to snag Haskins instead. But you know what? If he's going to be available and the Cardinals want to waste their first-round pick on this new trying to keep it G-rated, this new love affair from their new head coach to draft Kyler Murray. Take him. And then you know what? Rosen will have a chip on his shoulder the size of Wyoming and want to prove everybody wrong why he should have been kept in the first place.
I just don't think
picked at a higher slot.
Why don't we just say that this is an awful QB draft?
I agree 100%.
This is just
hold on. How can you say it's awful? We haven't even seen the guys play yet. We don't know. You can't say that yet.
In grade wise, dude. Because for instance, last year was considered on paper one of the best QB drafts in years.
Agreed.
The year before that, the Jets decided not to take a QB because they realized the QB ratings for the year before were not great, so they held out, which was smart. I'm talking about on paper. Yes, you don't know what's going to happen a year down the line because you got Tom Brady, who was drafted in the 7th round, and he turns out to be the greatest quarterback that ever lived.
Yeah, that doesn't happen normally.
But it happened, and it does happen. Later round quarterbacks have been successful in this league many times over.
I mean, but when you I feel like when you look on paper at, if you were to go back over all the last drafts and see who the top guys were and kind of what the public sentiment was about those guys, it bears out most of the time. Last year was a good draft. We all knew it was a good quarterback draft. You had Darnold, you had Rosen, who hasn't fared out so well. You've got who am I missing?
Mayfield.
Well, Case Keenum just agreed we forgot to talk about how he's on the Redskins.
Who's that?
Keenum.
Yeah, who's that? Darnold?
Baker Mayfield was also
and Josh Allen, and Baker Mayfield. Like, we knew on paper those were all going to be good quarterbacks. So you go back, all those years ago to a good paper draft. Roethlisberger, Manning, Rivers. So I think to some extent it doesn't matter. You always have outliers. You're going to have players like Josh Rosen that look good, but they don't fare that well. And then you're going to have other players, like Baker Mayfield that we actually had. I have more questions about Baker Mayfield than any of the other quarterbacks in the draft last year.
Let me ask you, what quarterback did you feel like out of the rookie class had a decent season as a rookie? And I know it's biased, but I'm gonna say Sam Darnold had a very decent season for a rookie. And as a Jet fan, I'm used to competition at quarterback because we never have a franchise quarterback. So Armondo, that's kind of where
Sure. If I'm a Jets fan, I'm excited. If I'm a Jets fan, I'm excited. You got your quarterback for the future.
But every season it was like, we got these two quarterbacks, they're gonna go at it and see who's gonna play football. Yeah. I hate that.
And the most successful franchises have
and you're right.
Backup.
Now we do.
Very clearly defined. That being said, this would be one of the greatest football god smitings if it were to happen. There's some rumblings right now that there's a non-zero chance that the New England Deflatriots sign Rosen to back up Brady for another year or two, learn all the tips and tricks, and then with Josh McDaniels taking over for Belichick, take the reins for another decade.
Is that what they're thinking? Josh?
I would hate to see that happen,
it
but
would
it's
be a
possible.
decently smart move.
It would be a decently smart move. That's kind of why I want the Giants to get him, so New England doesn't. But then lastly, about the stuff with Kyler Murray, going back to that, and the whiteboard conversations, how he didn't fare too well in the interviews, this and that. Listening to not First Things First. Speak for Yourself with Marcellus Wiley and Jason Whitlock. Phenomenal sports podcast, my favorite one out right now. And Marcellus Wiley, who was drafted by the Buffalo Bills, talked about how there's a lot of posturing before the draft.
Yep.
And a lot of teams, a lot of GMs, a lot of beat writers, a lot of influencers will say all kinds of negative things to negatively impact a player's draft status. So it would surprise me if some of these people coming out, the Casterleys and whatever else, and people have said Casterley's comments about Kyler Murray in the boardroom, in the meeting room, in the interview room, were a little bit overblown, but there's some truth to it. So it would not surprise me if people are saying these things so that people all of a sudden stay away from Kyler Murray. So he's basically nuclear. No one wants to touch him, and the Cardinals can snag him.
Unfortunately for me, he's got. I even before these, his meetings went really bad. I have bust written on him. He's got that bust potential, and I hate that. I hate those players that have bust potential. And I'm sorry, unfortunately, his size does matter in the NFL, and there are a few exceptions. So we'll see if. I hope I'm wrong. I hope Kyler Murray becomes a successful quarterback.
Well, for every Russell Wilson, there's a Teddy Bridgewater. Or RG3, somebody who's got a lot of potential.
There's five of them for every one.
Yeah, exactly. Wilson. So
sure.
Or actually, you can make an argument a lot more Russell Wilson's a one-of-a-kind player. So, But if you guys remember last week on the podcast, I think I said that exact thing you guys just said, which was a lot of the stuff people are saying about these guys is just smoke and mirrors regarding their height.
It is.
Their,
like
whatever.
They're spreading FUD.
Yeah, it's FUD. That's what it is. Fear, uncertainty,
and doubt.
It's true. Well, let's move on just real quick. I just want to touch on this because we talked about it last week on the podcast, which is the Lakers. I said I thought the Lakers would pull through this week and end up making the playoffs. They haven't won a single game since we made that bet last week, so Armando is definitely going to win that bet. The Lakers are now talking about shutting down LeBron or seriously reducing his minutes for the rest of the year. We really only got maybe a minute or two to talk about this, but there are rumors not rumors. There's pressure. Jeff Van Gundy had a quote this week where a lot of people were talking about the Lakers are so far from competing, they might as well trade LeBron. What do you? There's not a no trade clause in his contract. So what do you guys think?
I think this was a mess. They could have solved this problem by LeBron not coming to LA. I live in LA. I'm out of the three of us. I'm here. And there's nothing worse than turning on the sports radio. That's all they're talking about right now is LeBron. I don't think it's a marriage made in heaven. I think LeBron should move. I love LeBron too. Like, don't get me wrong. I was rooting for him on the Cavs because I like him as a player. It was amazing how he brought the Cavs to the finals on his own, brought him on his back, but he
literally by himself.
Yeah, but he can't keep doing it. All right. He can't. And this team is not for him. LeBron, I love you. I know you want to make movies, but you could come back to LA after you're done. Go somewhere else. Go to the Bucks. Who knows? Go somewhere else. Forget the Lakers. That's my thought.
At this point, Rob Pelinka, Magic Johnson, right? It's all Showtime. It's glitz, glamour, it's Hollywood. The optics would be so terrible, to quote Charles Barkley, if LeBron was to leave. There's no going back now. You're right. It's not a marriage made in heaven. It's a marriage made in the back in the room at the back in the dark in Vegas with some person dressed up as Elvis. That's where this marriage was made. It's far from optimal. And at the end of the day, it's going to be a train wreck. However, if this offseason the Lakers can bring aboard a Kyrie Irving, an Anthony Davis, a Kevin Durant, a Klay Thompson, or any one of those four, and then bring in one of LeBron's coaches, Ty Lue, who actually seems to know how to coach mega superstar personalities and the like. Just let them play, figure it out. Then you know what? Maybe this whole experiment won't be a total wash. Right now, year one, just scratch it off. It's gone. It was a complete load of baloney, and it's a dumpster fire. But let's see after this postseason, or after the postseason ends in the offseason, if we can bring aboard some superstars, then they might have a shot.
Well, the thing is, this season is pretty much a wash. It's pretty much over. So what I'm really hoping for is that the Lakers basically lose out at this point and have a higher chance to get a top 3 pick. Because if they were basically to lose out or almost lose out, which is a great possibility if they're shutting LeBron down, they might have a 20% chance to get up in the top 3 from what I heard on the radio, based on the new lottery system. So, that would be pretty good because if they can get a top 3 pick, now they have the leverage to go out and make a trade with the Pelicans or, whoever it might be for a sign and trade to bring a big name in. But here's a very interesting story I don't know if you guys know about regarding this that just came out yesterday, I believe. Brandon Ingram has a blood clot, which if you guys know, that is what pushed Chris Bosh out of the whole league. He never got medically cleared to play. So there's a chance that they're going to be, losing one of their top players and top trade bait, or at least it's going to be impossible for them to trade him, because not every player that gets a blood clot is going to end up like Chris Bosh, but the question and uncertainty of that will certainly leave teams not to want to make a high profile trade for Brandon Ingram. So that's a bad situation. Definitely pray for his family and him, feel bad for him with this. Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't, end his career.
I hope not. That would be pretty bad. But I think Chris Bosh it was towards the end of his career, when he's older. And I think it just got to the point where he couldn't really get cleared, but he did have a long career really. But
I don't know if that's right.
He had a solid.
He was in Toronto for a long time.
7, 8, 9 years. He was a perennial all-star in Toronto.
Yeah, he ran that team.
To be the Kevin Love of the Miami Heat and was the scapegoat for all their problems.
You know what, though? I still
He
remember
won the game.
he was definitely a team player, and I remember when they lost that first championship with the Heat, and
To Dallas, yeah.
He was crying hard. I watched him cry, and then the next year to see him win, I was really happy for Chris Bosh. That guy was a workhorse.
He
And
was. He was Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he had a lot of injuries. Because, dude, the big men in the NBA, man, they got problems. It's hard. Like, look at Shaq now. The guy can't even walk probably correctly. He's got problems, man. He's so big. When you're that big, it's not. You know who I once. Just a good fun story is I saw George Murasant. Who was he used to be on the Nets towards the end of his career, so he ended up staying in New Jersey. He lived in Bergen County, which is where I kind of grew up. I saw him at Hooters one night, and I'm like, George, and he's like, oh. But he had to quit because his body was just falling apart.
Pounding. Yeah.
You know, Sean Bradley had a long career as a tall guy, but his body fell out too. The tall guy.
Well, you know, here's the thing. Chris Bosh did not have that long of a career, guys. I know we're used to these players coming in the league so early now that it feels like they're playing for someone. Sure. Yes, he played for 12 seasons. So like, he did play for 12 seasons. He basically the last game he played, he was 31. So, you know, a lot of these NBA players play till they're, 36, 37, 38. A lot of players have their prime in between about 28 and 31. So he was really just kind of at the end of his prime years and probably had a lot of good years left. He definitely didn't want to retire. He finally retired, I believe, officially last year, but he didn't play for several years. So
12 seasons. The average NBA career.
Hey, 12 seasons with 3 rings ain't
average.
bad.
But average NBA career is skewed by players that are in the league a year or two. I mean, we're talking about a superstar. Once LeBron came to the Heat, like Bosh was no longer seen as a superstar, kind of like Kevin Love. But when he got traded to go play on LeBron, both Kevin Love and Chris Bosh were considered superstars. So, for a superstar to retire at 31, we don't really see that. Like in the NFL, for instance, if you saw a player retire at 31 that was like a quarterback, you'd be like, what? 31? Like Matt Ryan's 31 or 32. He's in the prime of his career right now, So,
well, that's quarterback. You can't even blink at a quarterback too hard.
That's true. But I mean, NBA is a lot easier on the body. I don't know. Maybe it's not the NFL.
Some players that have kind of like a good understanding of what their post career is have retired at an earlier year than you would want them to, but they do it because they're like, listen, I'm still young enough.
Yep.
I got my health. I'm gonna give it up right now, and that happens in football a lot. I think more often than not.
Yeah. Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, both of them.
Well, Barry Sanders, that wasn't his choice. The Lions stiffed him. He wanted to get traded out of Detroit, and they blocked him. So he had several years left in the tank, and he would have crushed the rushing record. Emmitt Smith is not the best running back ever. That belongs to Barry Sanders.
I agree.
Different conversation for a different time.
Wow,
we actually agree on that, Armondo. That's really weird. What the?
But that's the difference, is because Emmitt Smith held on to the end. He was on the Cardinals for those 2 years.
Shouldn't have played.
And, Barry Sanders went off at his greatest point.
Jim Brown did the same thing. Jim Brown retired around the same age.
You don't remember Barry Sanders bad. You don't remember him.
Emmitt Smith had a Hall of Fame offensive line for the vast majority of his career. I could have got 100 yards per game. I mean,
Emmitt Smith was a good running back. I mean, he was a good running back.
And he never got injured for the most part.
Am I wrong to think was Boomer Esiason left the Jets and was the starting quarterback for the Cardinals? Was he with Emmitt Smith?
I thought.
No, that was before the Jets. After he left the Jets to end his career, Boomer Esiason was the starting QB for the Cardinals. He threw a game where he threw 500 yards or something, but I think Emmitt was the running back. It was Boomer and Emmitt.
Wow, you're right.
Could be wrong.
One season.
They were both on the same team.
Yeah. God, right? That's crazy.
And then Boomer,
I didn't even remember
one
that.
Game that year, Boomer threw 6 touchdowns, 500 and something yards. It was really cool to see. But
Throwback.
I don't know. I have a vast memory of football history, so I'm glad I'm right.
For Jets players specifically.
It's magic.
For Jet players, it strings out to other players as long as it's connected.
Well, the Cardinals are known for picking up players at the end of their career for sure. So
they are.
Chris Johnson, Carson Palmer, Kurt Warner. I mean, Emmitt Smith. They've done it a lot. They pick these players at the very end.
They career locked Fitzgerald in. They paid him his whole career and kept him there the whole time. And I think that's really cool.
One good move that they've done. So
that's one good move.
Well, awesome. Well, we're about to the end. We're going to start a new little segment where we're all going to take 30 seconds at the end and kind of give our last word. So, Andy, why don't you go first?
Okay. It's not related to today, but on April 4th, the New York Jets will be revealing their new jerseys, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it on here. Now, what I pray to the Jet gods is that you go back to the Kelly green color, the lighter color, and you go back to the Jets logo that had the kind of fin on it. If you guys remember from the 80s, 90s, modernize it a little bit, but do not go like, there's rumors they're going to do an alternate black jersey. And I'm like, come on. It might look cool, but I'm like, I want the green and white as our colors. So that's the Jets. We're green and white. Simple as that. So Jets, do not disappoint us because Jet fans will not let you live after. If this is going to be bad, I'm going to be really sad. So anyway, looking forward to the Jet jerseys.
Hey, Ben, awesome. Thank you, Andy. Ben, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So last night, North Carolina swept Duke. Duke has not been the same team since Zion Williamson went down. It's been a bad situation for them. I think North Carolina fans are gloating a lot about this. However, I do feel like that Zion Williamson is going to come back in the tournament, and I actually expect Duke to get further than North Carolina. I think he's going to make an impact. I think the morale that will bring up will also be huge. But one thing is for sure, Zion Williamson has been canned for not playing the last couple of games when he could have played due to his injury. We're looking at this guy's long-term future here, and if he's not 100%, he shouldn't play. 100%. It's just not worth risking the millions of dollars in the future for his family. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Awesome. And I'll wrap us up. This isn't sports related. This is just life in general. There is a lot of information that we are exposed to every day as Americans, as global citizens, whether it's through the news, whether it's through mainstream media, social media, etc. I just want to implore you, anyone who's listening to this or watching this, use common sense. Check the information. Check your references. Please don't just believe everything that you're told or the narrative that someone's spinning to you because they want to elicit a certain response. There is way too much things out there that you can get upset about, you can get excited about. Do your research, critically think, and form your own opinions. Thanks.
Wow, that was good.
God,
I'll have to do something that good next week. I just talked about jerseys. Damn. I'm just kidding. Armondo, that's really good, man. I'm just cracking a joke. I actually like, Ben, we're going to do this every week, right? So our audience knows. I think it's cool. So.
Yeah, it's good. It means I have to actually come up with a topic. That's hard.
I want to it's so funny we're in these boxes, you know? I just want to
I want to read, you're below me. I don't know where I'm at.
I could actually high five Ben, you know? I could go, no, you're going the wrong way, buddy. Anyway,
we did it.
That was a good show, man. I'm having fun doing this. Third episode, right?
Yeah, that's it. So that'll be it for this week. You guys make sure to tune in for next week. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Immaculate Perceptions, and we'll talk to you guys later.
And then, wait, hold on. It's the Twitter is the IPP
OD.
Or IP pod. And yeah.
Bye. All right, guys. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.